Good morning. Surprising as it may seem, we are having difficulty getting past a certain hump. We have read, we have listened, we have even practiced, and still, here and there, the same knot appears in a new string, the same ache in a new room, and prayer, our prayer, takes on an old costume. Do you see that? We thought we had left willfulness behind. And then, in the hour of need, we discover that our prayer has been a set of instructions sent upward, a plan drawn carefully on our desk and then submitted to God, to fate, to mind, to circumstance, for approval and execution. Do you see that? Now let us be very clear. This is not blame. This is diagnosis. We have prayed like beggars, like lobbyists, like managers with memos, and then wondered why the atmosphere of strain remains after the Amen. A demand, even a religious demand, is still human will. It is will in church clothes. It is the same selfhood that arranged, controlled, feared, and then, weary of its failure, learned some spiritual words and tried again. I say this because I have seen it in myself. Otherwise, I would not have the right to say it to you. Do you see that? What is the hump? It is the belief that prayer is persuasion. It is the belief that God stands apart, holding a ledger of lacks and supplies, and that our task is to move that infinite life to act on our behalf. And so we compose arguments, we entwine affirmations, we aim thoughts at conditions, and we wait for the world to blink. When it doesn't, we fortify our statements, we refine our formulas, but the center of it remains the same. I, as a separate will, am trying to get reality to perform. Do you see the duality there? I ask you to set aside for this hour the entire enterprise of better demands. This is not a new technique. This is not a stronger magnet for things. This is a different basis for prayer altogether. Consent. Not do this, but let. Not change that, but be. Not my will, however pious, but an inward yielding to what is. Grace. Do you see? Consent. Not resignation, not passivity, but the holy yes that unmakes our resistance, and in the same breath, unmakes the problem manufactured by resistance. And here is the promise. Not shouted, not marketed, but quietly placed before you. There is one prayer that dissolves any problem. Not because it manipulates conditions, but because it dissolves the false sense of separation in which the problem had its life. When separation fades, the strain goes out of the room. The argument ends, and the right action which is already moving in your being is felt, recognized, and allowed. I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. That is not poetry. That is the only ground on which prayer is prayer. So here at the threshold, let us agree. If our prayer is a demand, we will not dress it in sacred language and call it faith. We will see it as will, and we will lay it down. We will move, intentionally, from will to consent. And in that movement, a door will open of its own accord. Do you see that? Now, if we are to move from will to consent, we must clear the ground of that which most masquerades as prayer, and is not prayer at all. I mean the entire enterprise of mental manipulation. Not autosuggestion, not self-hypnosis, not positive thinking, not a string of affirmations polished to a shine, not bargaining, not fear prayer, not getting God to do my plan, not vision boards, not attraction formulas, not any device by which a human mind attempts to produce, prevent, or rearrange effects. Do you see that? These are all activities on the same level as the problem, mind wrestling with the picture it has accepted. Even when they seem to improve a condition, the root remains untouched, because the root is not the condition. The root is the belief that conditions have power. Here is the hidden duality. The moment I affirm to change a condition, I have granted that condition power to injure or bless. I have set up a second power beside God, and then I go to work manufacturing a counterpower to defeat it. And the very working declares my faith. I believe in two powers. Do you see that? When we accept a condition as something, anything, other than an appearance within consciousness, we depart from the one power and begin a very sincere form of idolatry, fear of effect and hope in effect. That is why, though the words on our lips may be spiritual, the atmosphere of our prayer remains strain. We are competing with appearances, arguing with shadows. Ask yourself this, and ask it as a sharp instrument, not as philosophy. Am I praying to change God's attitude, or am I yielding to what already is? Am I trying to move the infinite into my scene, or am I consenting to the fact that the infinite is the life of this scene? One is will in religious clothing, the other is prayer. One works on effects, the other withdraws the false consent that made the effect seem a power. Let me give it to you simply. Suppose someone presents 2 times 2 are 5. Would you organize an army to wrestle the numeral 5 to the ground? Would you recite 4, 4, 4 till your throat is sore? Or would you quietly see the truth, and in seeing, watch the error lose its seeming? Where are you going to meet that 5? Out there on a chalkboard? No. You meet it within yourself as belief, as suggestion, as appearance. The moment you accept it as a condition with power, you are in battle. The moment you stand in truth, no battle is possible. Do you see that? So, not autosuggestion, not self-hypnosis, not positive thinking, not pleading with a reluctant deity, not commanding a distant universe, not stimulating the mind to produce improved pictures. Because mental methods try to fix conditions. Grace dissolves the belief that conditions are power. Grace is not a counterforce. It is the only presence, the only law, the only activity. Prayer, then, is not an improved technique. It is consent to that which is already the fact. It is the cessation of argument, the refusal to grant reality to the picture, until the quiet certainty dawns. I can of mine own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. We are clearing the ground, you see. The issue is never the external scene, money, health, relationship, weather, time. The issue is our inner consent to appearances as reality. Withdraw that consent, and you will feel the strain loosen before a single outward detail shifts. And from that loosening comes the first hint of freedom, the first whisper of sufficiency, the first taste of the flow that needs no technique, only room. Do you see that? Now let us come to the foundation without which nothing in this work functions, no matter how beautifully phrased. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. Say it within yourself and listen to what it does to the sense of distance. God is individual being. Not a distant helper, not a magistrate of fortune, not a cosmic vending machine for improved effects. God is your being. God is the very life you have been calling my life. Prayer begins where separation ends. Do you see that? This is not duality. This is not turning to a far-off God for favors. This is merely, simply, courageously turning within to the source that is your very life. I and the Father are one is not poetry. All that the Father hath is mine is not sentiment. These are the structure of reality when realized. The Master did not offer slogans, he revealed identity. And Moses standing before the bush, and Isaiah hearing the still small voice, and the wisdom of the Gita, all of it converges here. The place whereon you stand is holy ground, because the One is there as you. Do you see that? Now the temptation is very subtle. We can say these words for 20 years and still live as if we had a mind of our own to improve, a life of our own to save, a supply of our own to gather, and a health of our own to defend. And then we dare call that prayer. That is why strain remains. We have kept the premise of two, God somewhere, me here, and a line of prayer stretched between us to ferry help. No, the ferry is an illusion. There are not two shores. There is one life revealing itself as this individuality. When that is the premise, the atmosphere changes before a single word is spoken. Do you see that? You first of all must consciously realize, declare within yourself, quietly, not loudly, yes, God is my individual being. God is the mind by which I know, the life by which I live, the love by which I love. Not as a belief, not as a creed pinned to a bulletin board, but as the inner fact to which you consent. And this, now listen, this cannot be handed to you by teacher or book. Frankly, I can't do it for you, nor can the writings or the recordings do it for you. As long as these truths remain in a book, they are literature. When, however, you embody one principle, truly embody it, then you are living scripture. The infinite way is not a message, it is an experience. Do you follow that? So our practice is not reaching, not pleading, but yielding identity. Turn within and be willing to say, I am a willing instrument. I am willing to be still and let you be God as my very being. Nothing must come to me. The activity must flow through me. In that consent, all that the Father hath is mine ceases to be a hope and becomes the law of your being. Guidance is no longer sought as flashes from outside. It rises as impulse from within. Supply is no longer hunted as coin. It appears as right activity unfolding from the one that is your life. Health is no longer a fortress to defend. It is the natural harmony of the life that cannot be absent from itself. Nothing can happen to me except what happens to God, for God is my being. Do you see how prayer changes the instant separation ends? Hold to this, gently but firmly. Refuse the old habit that makes God an errand boy to your plans. Sit down, become still, and acknowledge. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. Then the words fall away, and the fact remains, and with it the unlabored sufficiency that is our theme. Now, having accepted that God is your being, let us look with clear eyes at what has been scaring us. What is a problem? Not a thing, not a power, not a law. A problem is a claim. A problem is a suggestion. A problem is an appearance to which we have, usually unconsciously, given consent. An appearance draws its seeming solidity from the atmosphere of our acceptance. Do you see that? The picture on the screen has no substance. It is our belief that lends it breath. And so the weight we feel is never the thing itself. It is the strain of supporting the picture with our fear and our hope. Take this simple illustration. Someone writes, 2 times 2 is 5. Would you organize a committee to march against the numeral 5? Would you shout, 4 at the chalkboard until you were hoarse? No. You quietly, gently, firmly meet the belief where it lives, in you, as an appearance, as a suggestion, as a claim without law. You behold the truth, and in beholding, the error dissolves. Not because you wrestled it to the ground, but because you refused it your consent. Do you see that? Where else could you meet it? Not in the chalk, not in the hand that wrote it, not in the classroom air. You meet it as belief within yourself. Now bring this to money. The bank book says, not enough. The employer says, no opening. The market says, down. If you accept those statements as law, you have set up a second power, and at once you are in battle with digits and timetables and the moods of men. You begin to manage, to angle, to plead, and the atmosphere thickens. But if, within yourself, you recognize, this is an appearance sustained by my consent to lack as power, and you withdraw that consent, quietly, not dramatically, you are out of competition with effects. Supply is not a pile of coins, it is the activity of the one living as your being. When the fear loosens, right action shows itself without strain, an impulse, a call, a step. Do you follow that? Health. A diagnosis sits on the desk. A symptom knocks on the door of the body. The temptation is instant. Meet it in the body. Fight it in the flesh. Argue with the report. And then we are competing with effects. Pills versus pain. Diet versus diagnosis. Time versus terror. I am not speaking against any human means. I am saying that your freedom does not lie there. You have not a sick person to contend with. You have a claim presenting itself to your consciousness. If you accept it as law, battle begins. If you meet it as appearance, as suggestion in your own awareness, and rest in the truth of being, the atmosphere changes. Grace is no longer obstructed by fear. Do you see that? Relationships and purpose wear the same mask. My spouse is the problem. My boss is the problem. The government is the problem. The moment you try to fix a person, you have given personhood the role of power, and you will be pricked by thorns. The issue is not the personality in front of you. It is the picture you have consented to within you, the picture of two powers, two wills, two lives at odds. Withdraw that consent. Recognize the one where you stand. Let the pressure go out of the scene and watch as right word, right timing, right silence arise as impulse rather than strategy. Why then does the struggle persist? Because we keep meeting shadows on the wall instead of turning to the light. We attempt outward management first, and in so doing, we prove our faith in effects. And since effects are many and changing, our struggle is endless. The work is not outward management first, but inward recognition. This is appearance. This is suggestion. This is a claim without law. And in that recognition, consent is withdrawn. Then, and only then, are we in position to receive the flow, and to let the necessary act appear without strain. Do you see that? Now we come to the pivot on which the whole door swings. What is asking for help as it is usually practiced? It is a separate self appealing to a separate God, often with tears, often with sincerity, but still with the premise of two. Please change this. Please remove that. Please send me what I do not have. And because the premise is two, the atmosphere is strain. We are trying to move an outside power to adjust an outside scene for an inside fear. And we wonder why, even with beautiful words, the heaviness does not lift. Do you see that? Asking in this way assumes distance, assumes delay, assumes that conditions have a vote and God must be persuaded to overrule. That is duality wearing a halo. Now contrast it with letting grace be sufficiency. Not informing God, not pressuring God, not composing a brief for the court of heaven. No, it is consenting to the activity of God already present as your very being. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. This is not duality. This is the end of it. It is a quiet interior acknowledgement. I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. And then a willingness to be the instrument rather than the engineer. I am a willing instrument. I'm willing to be still and let you be God as my very being. Do you see how the atmosphere changes the instant the engineer resigns and the instrument consents? Here is the single lever, and it is simple enough to miss. Any problem dissolves to the degree that the sense of separation dissolves, because separation is the root of fear, lack, and disorder. The picture on the wall has no power until we agree that it is the room itself. In separation we fight shadows. In oneness we behold, and the shadow loses its seeming. So the interior language must change from "make this happen" to "reveal what is." From "do this for me" to "be thou the sufficiency unto this situation." Do you not feel the difference even now? One pushes, the other yields. One argues, the other consents. And in consent, the false consent to appearances is withdrawn. Frankly, I can't do it for you. Nor can the writings, nor can a recording push this pivot for you. The transition must take place in you, in your own consciousness, in the secret place where no one else can enter. When the pressure arises, money, health, relationship, time, turn, not outward with instructions, but inward with consent. Father, not my will, but thine. Let thy grace be the sufficiency here, not by might, not by power, but by thy Spirit as my very life. And then refuse to pick the tools of argument back up. It is not your function to inform omniscience or to heat the furnace of desire. It is your function to consent to what already is and to let the feel of sufficiency displace the pressure of planning. Do you see that? This is not passivity. This is the only potency there is. For the moment, grace is no longer obstructed by our fear and our managing. It reveals itself as right impulse, right word, right restraint, right step, unlabored, unhurried, unmistakable. Prayer is not getting God to do. Prayer is consenting to what God is doing as your very being. Hold that, live that, return to that, and watch as the sense of two powers thins, and with it, the problem that fed upon that illusion. Now let us make it very simple. So simple that the mind will be tempted to pass it by. When the pressure presents itself, turn within, quietly, not dramatically, and say, "Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition." Then be still. Do you see how the very phrasing removes your outline, removes your plan, removes your urgency to manipulate effects? Let thy grace be the sufficiency. Not my cleverness, not my pressure, not my fear disguised as piety. Thy grace. Understand this. Those words are not a spell. They do not move an absent God to arrive. They do not cajole the universe into special treatment. They are not a formula to trick fate. They are a doorway through which you consent to what already is. the activity of the Christ. The words matter only because they move you from managing to yielding, from two powers to one. Grace, not language, is the sufficiency. Do you see that? Now, to anchor the posture, add this within yourself. I am a willing instrument. I am willing to be still and let you be God. I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. This and this alone dislodges fear from the control room. For help must come as the activity of the Christ, not as my understanding, not as human wit, not as metaphysical argument. If it comes as me, it will fail. If it flows through me, it will be right and unlabored. Let me tell you what this does not mean, lest the old mind rush to co-opt it. It does not mean reckless behavior. It does not mean charge every purchase and call it faith. It does not mean ignore human steps or common sense. Grace expresses as wisdom, as restraint, as timing. Sometimes the flow is wait. Sometimes it is no. Often it is a quiet, not this way. To consent is to prefer the inner impulse to the outer pressure, and to obey it. Do you see that? If fear surges back, you may whisper it again, gently, not as bombardment, but as reminder. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition. And then, once more, silence. Not arguing with appearances, not composing results, not asking for a sign, just the willing instrument consenting. This is not duality. This is merely the human form of turning within to the fact that God is individual being, your being, and therefore the only sufficiency is already present where you are. Use the exact words if they help you enter that consent. Release them the moment the sense of pressure gives way to a felt quiet. The prayer has done its work when it has removed you. From there, the activity is God's, the sufficiency is grace, and the next right thing will appear without strain. Do you see that? Now comes the part many miss because it looks like nothing. After the prayer, stop. Be still. No more statements, no more arranging, no more mental arguing with pictures. The work now is silence. Silence pregnant with consent. Not dead air, not sulking, but a living stillness in which you are saying without words, I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. Do you see that? The words have pointed you. Now the pointing hand drops, and you rest. What are you waiting for? Not a bang, not fireworks, not a trance. You are waiting for the inner atmosphere to change. Sometimes it comes as a simple settling, like silt dropping to the riverbed and the water clearing. Sometimes it is a warmth, a softening in the chest, a release at the back of the neck, the jaw loosening. Sometimes it is no sensation at all, and yet you know. The clutch of fear has relaxed. The compulsion to fix has let go. A quiet certainty has taken the driver's seat. That is the flow. Do you see that? Not drama, sufficiency. Not stimulation, peace. Do not measure by the clock. Measure by the transition. Remain until the interior shift occurs from pressure to presence, from outlining to allowing, from many powers to one. It may be 30 seconds. It may be 5 minutes. Time is not the measure. Release is. The discipline is this: do not rise from the chair still clutching the tools of management. Sit, even clumsily if need be, but sit until you can honestly say, "The push to fix this has eased. I am content to let grace be sufficiency." Then you are ready to move, or to be moved. Do you follow that? Now, the common interference. The mind will rush back with plans, rehearsals, blame, and what-ifs. It will offer bright ideas and dark prophecies. Do not enter debate. Do not try to outshout it with affirmations. Gently, as a mother returning an eager child to bed, place one whisper: "Let thy grace be the sufficiency." Then silence again. Not repeated as a hammer, but as a turning of the face. If it returns a dozen times, return a dozen times, quietly. Each time you choose consent over argument, a thread of fear snaps and the atmosphere clarifies. Do you see that? Why is this tangible? Because grace announces itself first as the end of strain. The picture on the wall may still be the picture, but the room is no longer tense. You feel it unmistakably. The breath deepens. The mind unhooks from rehearsals. The body ceases bracing for impact. That felt disappearance of pressure is the first evidence of the activity of the Christ in your consciousness. From there, right action, if any, rises as impulse rather than compulsion. Call now. Wait. Speak this one sentence. Say nothing. It will be unlabored. It will be timely. It will not have the taste of fear. And if nothing is given, you remain in quiet sufficiency, which is action enough until the next step appears. So learn this holy pause. After the prayer, the work is silence, until strain yields to a felt sufficiency. In that pause, separation thins, oneness is tasted, and the problem, being an appearance living on your consent, begins to dissolve for lack of it. Sit there as a willing instrument and let God be God as your very being. Do you see that? Now let us take this into the street where the pressure actually meets you: money, health, relationship. And see that it is one and the same practice everywhere. One prayer, one pause, one consent. Not 100 methods for 100 problems, but one basis. Do you see that? Money first, because it so quickly tightens the chest. The mind says, "Can I afford it? What if I miss it? What if this is my only chance?" And at once the room fills with urgency. That is the moment to turn within. Right then, not after 3 phone calls, and ask simply, "Father, is this for us right now?" Then wait. Do not load the scale with your fear. Do not recite reasons for and against. Do not fish for a sign. Wait until there is either a quiet yes or a quiet no, and let that be sufficient. If yes, you will find the step unlabored and timely. If no, you will discover you are spared a misstep. Supply is not a price tag. It is the activity of the one living your life, and that one knows timing. In either case, the fear that digits have power has been withdrawn, and with the fear gone, the next right provision appears, as opportunity, as restraint, as a different door. Do you see? Health presents with more drama, but the ground is the same. A report is placed before you. A sensation shouts. The temptation is instant. Compete with it in the body. Argue with the paper. Rush into strategies fueled by dread. Stop. Turn within and meet the claim where it lives, as suggestion in your awareness, as an appearance that has borrowed your consent. Refuse it, that consent. Not by clenched denial, not by trying to feel brave, but by stating quietly, "Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition." Then be still until the push to fix the body yields to the feel of life present as you. From that sufficiency, whatever right human steps are impelled, rest, treatment, abstention, conversation, will come as impulse, not as panic, and will be clothed in peace. You are not battling a body. You are consenting to the Christ activity as life. And in that atmosphere, the appearance begins to lose its seeming. Relationships seem to demand speeches, arguments, proofs. If I could just make them see. No. The very urge to change another is your belief in persons as power. Withdraw it. Sit down and let grace be the sufficiency unto this relationship and unto my own reactions in it. Wait until the heat cools, until the necessity to win gives way to a willingness to love. Then watch. Sometimes a single sentence rises, fresh and unarmed. Sometimes a boundary appears. Sometimes the clear leading is silence. Right word, right timing, right quiet. Each is grace when it comes from the inner sufficiency and not from management. Protect this with a strong fence. Not willpower, not charm, not manipulation, not spiritual bravado, not budgeting fear, not dietary terror, not persuasive harangues, not sulking withdrawal. Only this inner yielding until right action emerges of itself. For grace does not fight conditions. It reveals that conditions have no power. And in that revelation, fear thins and the next step is given. One prayer, one pause, one consent. Money, health, relationship. Do you see that? Now inevitably the question arises, what about others? What about my child, my friend, the one who phones in tears? And here we must be very clear, because there is a subtle cruelty disguised as kindness. To leave anyone believing they need your prayers, your membership, your method, is to bind them to you and away from God. A man or a woman sins when they leave you in the position of believing that you in any wise need them. Do you see that? If after you have spoken, they feel that your understanding, your organization, your technique is their lifeline, you have planted idolatry in tender soil. We are not to make disciples of persons. We are to point to the One. We are not to add to their bundle of fears one more fear, the fear of being without us. So when someone asks for help, do not counsel first. Do not collect the story. Do not offer remedies born of your bright ideas. Turn within, right there, in their presence if possible. Say within yourself, "Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition." And then be still until the flow is felt. Do not hurry the silence. Do not pad it with noble phrases. Wait until the pressure to fix yields to that quiet certainty we have spoken of. From there, if a word is given, speak it. If an act is impelled, take it. If no word comes, remain in the atmosphere of sufficiency and say simply, "Let us go to God together." Often the greatest help has come when there were no words and no thoughts, only the activity of the Christ. Understand this even more deeply. The help must come through you, not to you. You are not a reservoir from which you pour. You are a transparency through which grace flows. I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. Do you see how that frees you from the terrible burden of outcomes and from the subtle pride of successes? If it comes as you must sustain it and explain it and defend it. If it comes through you can neither take credit nor carry blame. You can only be grateful and available. Therefore, set boundaries in love. Refuse the role of savior. Say, I will not take you as a project. Let us practice together. Invite them to the same simple discipline, 3 to 5 minutes several times a day, in which they turn within and consent. Let thy grace be the sufficiency. Teach them to wait for the inner loosening before they act. Meet with them, if you must meet, in silence first, not in discussion first. If they try to prop themselves on your presence, daily reports, dependency rituals, gently, firmly turn them to the Comforter within. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you, and see the freedom of it. This posture removes personal responsibility for fixing lives and increases true compassion. You are not guarding your reputation. You are guarding their birthright. You are not managing their conditions. You are standing with them at the place where conditions lose power. Then your availability is clean, unentangled. You can answer a call at midnight without depletion, because you are not giving yourself, you are witnessing grace. And whether the outer picture shifts quickly or slowly, or in ways the mind did not script, the sufficiency is present, and both of you rise a little further out of the belief in persons as power. Do you see that? Let us go to God together, and let grace be the sufficiency. Now, to make this real, we have to do the simple thing that the mind dislikes because it seems too small. Repeat it. The world beliefs will return. Suggestions will knock. The old habit of managing will reach for the wheel again and again. That is not failure. That is the arena in which practice becomes consciousness. Each time you notice the pressure and turn within, you are withdrawing consent from appearance and yielding consent to grace. The battle is fought afresh, not because truth is weak, but because universal belief is insistent. Do you see that? So we answer it with steady, brief, faithful returns, 3 to 5 minutes, several times a day, until consent is no longer an act, but an atmosphere. Make it practical. Upon waking, before the day spins you, sit on the side of the bed and turn within. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this day, these meetings, these unknowns. Then be still until the sense of having to produce the day lessens. Mid-morning, pause between tasks, even in an office chair, even with people moving around you, and whisper, I can of mine own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works. Noon, before you choose or chew, choose to yield. Mid-afternoon, when energy dips and plans crowd in, turn again. Let thy grace be the sufficiency. Evening, before talk, before screens, before sleep, return once more. Not to think about God, not to decorate the mind with holy phrases, but to yield to God as your being and to sit in silence until the flow is felt, even faintly. Do you follow that? Carry a portable script in your pocket of awareness. Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition. Or, I can of mine own self do nothing, Father. Thou doest the works. Then no more words. Wait for the interior unclenching, the small loosening, the quiet yes or no that rises without argument. If the mind rushes back with plans, gently return it, once, twice, 10 times if needed, without violence, without drama. These are micro-intervals, not marathons. You are not trying to wring results from God. You are consenting to what already is and letting strain drain out of the scene. Guard yourself here against spiritual ambition. Do not set up a scoreboard. How many minutes? How deep was the piece? Did I do it right? That is ego gathering medals in a temple. The only sign to watch is simplicity, childlikeness, less strain, fewer impulsive speeches, a willingness to wait for the inner impulse and to obey it. If you begin to feel proud that you are getting good at it, stop and begin again. I am a willing instrument. Let thy grace be the sufficiency. This is not your achievement. This is your consent. What will happen? Gradually, sometimes almost imperceptibly, decisions clarify. You find yourself saying yes where you once braced in fear, and no where you once grasped in lack. Reactions soften. The extra sentence you would have spoken is not spoken. The unnecessary purchase is not made. The timely call is made without rehearsal. Many problems dissolve before they harden, because consciousness changes first. You have withdrawn consent before the picture could borrow your fear. And the greatest gift, quietly, is autonomy. You are less tempted to run to people, to systems, to techniques, because you are discovering the comforter within. So do not wait for crisis to practice. Sow consent in fair weather, 3 to 5 minutes, several times a day, until it ceases to be a practice and becomes the tone of your being. One prayer, one pause, one consent, again and again, until it is not a thing you do, but what you are. Do you see that? Then the day moves in peace, and the sufficiency is present before any appearance asks you to prove it. Now let us close the circle. Surprising as it may seem, we began with a hump we all know. Prayer as demand is still human will in religious clothing. If your prayer is a demand, it is you trying to move a power outside to fix a picture outside for a fear inside. That is strain. That is two. But if prayer is consent, if prayer is the quiet yes to what already is, the atmosphere changes, grace becomes tangible, and the burden falls to the ground. Do you see that? Not because the words are prettier, but because the premise is one. God is individual being. God is your being. God is my being. In that one, the need to manage ceases, and sufficiency reveals itself. Therefore, the whole thing reduces to a single movement that you can carry into a kitchen, a shop, a hospital corridor, a boardroom, a midnight. First, recognize the claim as appearance, not a power, not a second law, only a picture that has been borrowing your consent. Then, quietly, declare, let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition. Next, become still. No more arranging, no more explaining. Wait until the flow is felt as release, as warmth, as quiet certitude. From that sufficiency, follow the quiet leading. One step, one word, one restraint. That is all. That is everything. Do you follow that? We are not dealing with two powers. Not God and the problem. Not spirit here and matter there. There is only God, appearing as your being and your life, right where you stand, holy ground. I and the Father are one. All that the Father hath is mine. Nothing can happen to me except what happens to God, and there are not two gods. Any problem dissolves to the degree that the sense of separation dissolves, because separation is the life of fear. Consent removes separation. Consent is the dissolving power. Do you see that? Now, together, where you sit, turn within with me, and without display say, "Let thy grace be the sufficiency unto this individual, this situation, this condition. I can of my own self do nothing. Father, thou doest the works." Now no more words. Be still a moment. Let the push drain out. Let the breath settle. Prefer the inner quiet to the outer picture. If there is a softening, a loosening, a simple enough, stay with it. If not yet, do not force, only wait. The flow announces itself by peace before it moves as action. And now hear this with love. I cannot do this for you, nor can a book, nor can a recording, nor this very talk. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. The point of all our hours together is that you turn within and find that the Comforter is already your very life. So go your way without dependence. No clinging to teacher or method or organization. Carry one prayer, one pause, one consent. Use it in brief intervals until it is your atmosphere. Then the day will meet you on holy ground, and the sufficiency will be present before any appearance asks you to prove it. Do you see that? Let thy grace be the sufficiency, and let that be the end of two.